Okay, how's everybody doing? Hello, everyone. My name is Tristan Pai, and today I want to talk about something we all use every day, but rarely think about, which is passwords. As you can see, the password problem here. As I've learned in my cybersecurity course, and especially chapter four of my cybersecurity course, is that passwords are the foundation of digital security, but also they're one of the weakest links in protecting our information. So over the course of these next 15 minutes, I just want to explore why passwords matter, how they work, how they can be exploited, and what tools can help us create stronger passwords, but also protect our passwords. So let's see here. Um, let's start with the reality we face. Our daily reality here is that, many of us have many different accounts, different passwords that we have for emails, social media, banking apps, working systems, shopping sites. You can name basically anything. And we'll probably have a password for it. That's why the average person usually averages over 100 passwords. And that's all different passwords that we all have to manage. And because of the overwhelming amount that we have to manage, is that it's really easy to reuse the same password across multiple platforms and different accounts. So each one of these is a potential entry point into our digital identity. So when we reuse passwords, we're essentially creating a master key that unlocks multiple doors in our lives here. So how does password authentication work in the first place? When you enter a password, the system doesn't just compare it, ooh, excuse me, to a stored copy. Instead, it's hashed. It's used in a process called hashing. So what does hashing actually do? When you enter a password here, the system runs it through a cryptographic hash function, which creates a unique fingerprint of your password. And then after that, it compares this fingerprint to the stored hash in a set database. So the critical thing to understand about hashing and passwords is that passwords are never stored in plain text, meaning that when it's stored, it's not just stored as it is, it's stored very differently. They're stored as hashes, which is a one-way mathematical function that are theoretically irreversible. This is why when you forget your password, companies can't tell you what the password is. They can only let you reset it because it's not really accessible to them either. And this is the biggest part of the security feature for passwords, especially it being stored in a database. Because if a database is breached, attackers only get the hashes and not the actual passwords. So strong hashing algorithms make it computationally expensive and sometimes impossible to reverse these hashes back into the original password here. Um, so we have strong and weak passwords. As you can tell, like when anytime you create a password here, they're gonna let you know if it's strong, moderate, or weak. But let's look at two different examples we have here. So we have a weak password that like password 123 that can be easily cracked, easily guessable, in less than probably like 1 second in modern hardware because uses a common word, it has sequential numbers 1, 2, 3, and there's no special characters. So it's in every attacker's dictionary. But comparing it to a password like T7 $ MK9 hash hashtag PL2 ats V, you kind of get where I'm going with that password. But this would take a billion, like almost like too much time to even decipher and crack. It has 17 characters, it has uppercase, lowercase, and has a bunch of special symbols and characters with no actual like predictable pattern. So, what does make a password strong? Length is key. So, having at least 12 to more characters, mixing them with uppercase and lowercase, and including special numbers and symbols, all make a unique and strong password that isn't easily guessable by an attacker. So using like personal information like your birthday or name and other things like that can make a weak password. Yeah. So how do attackers exploit weak passwords? Excuse me. Understanding how attackers work help help us understand why strong passwords matter. Brute force attacks try every possible combination systematically with modern GPUs. Attackers can test billions of passwords per second against stolen database hashes. So, um, Dictionary attacks use lists of common passwords, common words, and different things like that. And research has shown that over 80% of breached passwords come from known weak password lists. If your password is password, let me in, or 123456, or anything basic like that, you're probably in the 80% category of passwords that get breached. But credential stuffing is particularly dangerous as well. When one site is breached, attackers take those username password combinations and they try them everywhere. Especially what we mentioned earlier, a lot of people reuse the same password for multiple platforms and accounts. So once a username and password combination has been breached, it's going to be tested probably everywhere else as well. Um, and one another common attack method is phishing, which is basically tricking users into revealing passwords through fake login pages, and no amount of encryption or hashing, excuse me, can protect against human error. So the real world impact is staggering. Like in 2023, which was just 2 years ago, 81% of data breaches involved weak, stolen, or reused passwords, and the average cost per breach was around 4.45 million. So this is something that is constantly happening every day, and so it's just showing how basically important password management really is. So let's bring it back to the human factor, and why password security often fails despite our best intentions. So, security experts tell us passwords should be long and complex, unique for every account, changed regularly, and never written down and never shared. But if you bring it to the human side, that's almost like not the real reality. Like passwords can be hard to remember. We have, as we mentioned, like over 100 passwords to manage, so changing them can be very inconvenient, and the temptation to even reuse a password is very strong because way easier to manage. So common risky behaviors include writing passwords on sticky notes, sharing them via email or text, and using the same password everywhere, and saving them in browsers without additional protection. So the solution to isn't to shame people for these behaviors, but we need tools, more tools at least, that work with human nature and not against it. So that's where I will demonstrate how password managers and multi-factor authentication come in to help implement security requirements and human capabilities. So let's talk about password managers real quick before I get into the demo here, as well as multi-factor authentication. So password managers are the most important security tool you can use, and here's basically how they work. They're encrypted vaults that store all your passwords behind one master password. They automatically generate strong, unique passwords for every account, like the 17 character monster we saw earlier with the T's, seven dollar sign, ad, hashtag, all that good stuff. So they autofill login forms, so you don't need to remember or type anything, but the only password you need to remember is the one strong master password, and everything else is automatically generated and stored securely for you. So, I mean, as stated, the benefits are huge with password managers. They generate complex passwords that you don't need to remember. You get a unique password for every single account with autofill credentials, which can actually protect you against phishing as well because the password manager won't fill credentials on a fake site. Your passwords are encrypted, they're all synced to all your devices, and many include breach monitoring to alert you if any credentials appear in any data breaches. So, there are different popular options for password managers in general, since it's a tool, obviously. So we have like 1Password, Bitwarden, which we will be using in our demonstration today. LastPass, Dashlane, even browser-built managers like Chrome and Safari, and even like Apple, they would recommend like very strong passwords when you're creating one. So, it's starting to become more prevalent in today's modern day password making, I guess you can say. So as we start our demonstration here, we're going to have two demos, a password manager setup and enabling multi-factor authentication. Yeah, Bitwarden is a very easy password manager, and it syncs with basically any browser that you can have. For me, I'm using Microsoft Edge. So as we see here, bring this back up. They're basically asking me to create a master password that's going to be my original password. So let's try something along the lines of what were we doing earlier? Let's try something here. I'll let you guys see it too. It's gonna be something crazy. Tropical sunrise 573. And it's gonna give me confirmation that that is a strong password. Password for us. So let's say we want a new login. Um, we'll do our Capital One shopping, right? So I'm gonna make a username here. Let's say T902. It even can generate a username for me too, which is kind of nice. But let's say we want to generate a password here. So we have a password generator. I'm gonna give it the length, any type of like mandatory. So some different accounts require different requirements for a password. So let's say I want to add special characters too. So the minimum special character is one, minimum number, and I want a lowercase, uppercase. And here's the generated password it made for me. So this is just one way of creating a generative password. Um, we have the accounts created, and yeah, but now I also want to demonstrate before we talk about it some more multi-factor authentication. So I have my GitHub pulled up over here, and I do not have two-factor authentication yet installed. So we're going to enable my mobile device here. And as you can see, I got a text for a verification code. So it's 304237, right? So here are my recovery codes. We're just going to download these. Saved. And now my GitHub, when I sign in, has a two-factor authentication to ensure that it is me, in fact. So there are also other ways to include multi-factor authentication, but that is just one of the ways that we will demonstrate here today. Um, so let's keep going. Multi-factor authentication. So even with strong passwords, we want to have another layer of defense. So multi-factor authentication is defense in depth. It requires two or more important credentials, even if your password is compromised. Through phishing, data breach, or anything like that, they can access your account through the second factor. So Google does this a lot as well. And the impact is very dramatic. Like Microsoft reports that multi-factor authentication blocks around 99.9% of automated attacks, which is a really high percentage, as you can see. And there's many different companies that use this practice, and it's actually very effective. So this is something that's important in modern day password and account security. But passkeys are something that is being implemented as well as we continue to move forward to the future. Passkeys use public key cryptography, to eliminate passwords entirely. So your device stores a private key while websites store only the public key. Authentication happens through biometrics or a pin on your device. There's no password, no phish, or no guessing. So the advantages here are significant. Passkeys are phishing resistant because of the cryptographic keys that are tied to specific websites. Major platforms are already rolling this out. So Apple supports passkeys in iOS 16 and later. We have Google, Android, Chrome, and all that good stuff, all implementing passkeys to not only make it easier to and try not to use the same passwords everywhere, as we mentioned earlier. In unencrypted files too, storing passwords there in like plain text can make it much more accessible for attackers to breach. And yeah, let's push here towards our conclusion. So our key takeaways here is passwords are foundational but vulnerable. So they vulnerable basically to constant threats from brute force, phishing, credential stuffing. Human behavior is the weakest link, excuse me, as we reuse passwords, can choose weak ones, and do many things that make it a lot easier to manage, manage at least we can say, or to, control. But using different tools and things like that, we can bridge the security gap between human behavior and security measures. So password managers, multi-factor authentication, these things again, brought up again. But yeah, the future is passwordless, but that journey is ongoing. Until then, remember that strong passwords are the better passwords, and there are many tools out there to help you protect your account and your passwords as well. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a great rest of your day.